All right, welcome to another deep dive. Today's source material, it's an audio diary entry, and it's got us thinking a lot about how people try to figure out, where they fit in the bigger picture of things.
Yeah, like how they grapple with all of the existential stuff,
Right, exactly, like purpose and meaning, all of that.
And the way they use this phrase, technical linguistic debt, really jumped out at me.
Yeah.
It's as if they're almost, treating their thoughts and ideas like a program that needs to be, cleaned up and made more efficient.
Like debugging their own mind.
Exactly.
And it seems like they're really feeling the weight of this debt. It's like they're describing the sense of urgency to try and offload it. There's all these repeated phrases and questions like, what does it mean? And can we find a way?
Yeah, it's like they're searching for the right words or framework to understand their own internal world.
Right. And maybe by expressing it, by getting it out there, they hope to lighten that load.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. But it makes you wonder, what exactly is this debt made up of? Is it all those feelings they haven't dealt with yet?
Yeah, it could be.
Dreams they haven't chased? Or maybe just the sheer volume of information we're all bombarded with every day?
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination of all of that.
Yeah.
But what's really fascinating to me is how they connect this personal struggle to these bigger themes like family legacy, societal structures, even the choice to exist at all.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And speaking of family legacy, they talk about wanting to set up a family office and a library.
Uh-huh.
It's almost like they're searching for ways to make their thoughts and ideas, last.
And like something concrete to pass on to future generations.
Yeah. But then it also makes you think about what we choose to preserve and why.
Right. And how do we make sure that what we leave behind actually gets understood in the way that we intended it?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So they have this term they use, open sourcing their hypergraph. We've never heard this before, have you?
Yeah. It's like this mysterious concept that appears over and over again.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly what a hypergraph is, but based on what they're saying, it seems to represent something deeply personal and complex.
It's like they want to share the blueprint of their mind,
Right.
But at the same time, they're also aware of how limiting language can be and how hard it is to truly communicate all the nuances of our thoughts.
It's that tension between wanting to connect and share and knowing that communication can be tricky.
Yeah.
They even bring up the concept of antinatalism,
Yeah.
like questioning whether it's ethical to have children in a world with so much suffering.
Yeah, which is interesting because they also talk about wanting to establish a family office.
Right.
It's almost like they're struggling with the inherent contradictions of life,
Yeah.
the desire to create, but also being aware of the potential costs.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder what really drives us to create in the first place.
Yeah.
Is it just biology? Or pressure from society?
Mhm.
Or is there something deeper, like a need to leave a mark?
Right.
A need to transcend our own mortality?
Right.
Yeah, I think it's probably all those things mixed together.
Wow.
But what's clear is that this person is deeply engaged with these questions and actively looking for answers, even though those answers might be difficult to find.
It's like they're on this quest for meaning, going through different philosophies, trying to understand themselves and the world around them.
Exactly.
And part of that journey leads them to think about the nature of intimacy and how we connect with others.
Yeah, they talk about physical, sexual, emotional, and spiritual intimacy. It's like they're looking for a connection that touches on every aspect of their being.
Like they're trying to figure out their place in the grand scheme of things, both personally and on a larger level.
Right.
And this search for belonging leads them to this very powerful moment.
Seems like a turning point in their journey.
It's like by putting a name to themselves, they've taken control of their story.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how even as they claim this identity, they don't shy away from all those complicated questions about life's meaning and their purpose.
Definitely. And this leads them back to that idea of technical linguistic debt. But this time they're looking at it not just as their own personal burden, but as something bigger, something that affects all of society.
Yeah, like maybe everyone struggles to articulate these deep thoughts and feelings. Maybe it's a collective thing, trying to find the right language to express the human experience in such a complicated world.
That's a really interesting connection, and it makes me think about how much we rely on existing structures and frameworks, like societal expectations, cultural norms, even language itself to understand our lives. But what happens when those frameworks don't work for us anymore? What happens when the language we have just isn't enough to express the depths of what we're experiencing?
It seems like the speaker is wrestling with those limitations.
Yeah.
They talk about open sourcing their hypergraph. It's still a mystery to me. But it also suggests this desire to break free from the usual ways of expressing things.
Right, like they're searching for a new language, a new way to communicate that goes beyond just words. And this ties back to their thoughts on legacy and wanting to create something lasting.
It makes sense because if language itself isn't enough, how can we make sure that our ideas, our values, who we are, gets passed on to future generations?
It's a deep question, and the speaker tackles it head on. They even bring up antinatalism again, but this time it feels less like a philosophical debate and more like a personal struggle with the responsibility of bringing new life into a world that can be so difficult.
Yeah, and that sense of responsibility seems to go beyond just having kids.
Right.
They talk about the financial burden of existing, needing to itemize and time-bind the cost of living, which feels connected to this technical linguistic debt idea.
It's like they're trying to put a number on the weight of existence itself.
Wow.
To measure not just the financial cost, but the emotional labor, the cognitive load, the sheer effort it takes to be human.
It makes you think about how we usually talk about debt in terms of money, but what about the other kinds of debt we carry? Emotional debt, social debt, existential debt.
Right.
It seems like the speaker's saying that all these different types of debt are intertwined, creating this heavy burden that can sometimes feel overwhelming.
And maybe that's what they're trying to offload with this technical linguistic debt. Not just their own personal struggles, but a feeling of unease that many people share, a recognition that the systems we've built don't always support us the way we need them to.
And maybe by talking about this unease, by bringing it out in the open,
Yeah.
they hope to start a conversation, encourage people to look at their own relationship with these systems and structures.
That's a big goal. It makes me wonder if this hypergraph they keep talking about is their way of building a new framework, a new way to understand and navigate these complexities.
It's an intriguing possibility. That's definitely something we'll continue to explore as we dig into the last part of this audio diary. So here we are, the final part of this audio diary. It's been a really interesting journey so far. I'm curious to see where the speaker takes us from here. They've brought up so many thought-provoking questions about legacy and connection, and even the nature of existence itself.
You know what really stands out to me is how they keep coming back to this idea of technical linguistic debt.
Yeah.
It's like it's a key to understanding the deeper meaning of their whole journey.
I see what you mean. It's not just about getting rid of words or making thoughts more streamlined. It's about questioning those basic structures we use to make sense of ourselves and the world.
And that questioning leads them to some really radical ideas like antinatalism and that whole open sourcing their hypergraph thing, which is still kind of a puzzle to me.
Maybe it's supposed to be a puzzle. But remember, they started this whole thing by asking, what does it mean?
Good point. It makes you think about how much we crave certainty. We want those clear-cut answers, the easy solutions, but life is rarely like that.
Exactly. And maybe that's the real value of this audio diary. It's not about finding the right answers. It's about being willing to ask the hard questions, to wrestle with the complexities and keep searching even when things are uncertain.
The speaker isn't afraid of discomfort. They embrace that tension between wanting to leave a legacy but questioning the ethics of bringing new life into the world.
Right.
They acknowledge the financial burden of existence, but they also long for something beyond the material.
It's that willingness to hold those seemingly opposite ideas at the same time that I find so fascinating. It reminds me that life isn't about finding the perfect balance or reaching some final resolution.
Right.
It's about navigating the mess, the uncertainty, and finding meaning in the middle of it all.
And that takes us back to that hypergraph. Maybe it's not an actual thing, but more like a representation of how the speaker sees the world.
Yeah.
A way of seeing that embraces complexity and challenges the way we usually think.
Like a lens they're using to make sense of their experiences and then trying to share that with others. And maybe that active sharing of open sourcing, their unique perspective, is how they're trying to contribute to a bigger shift in understanding.
It's a powerful idea. And it connects to their earlier thoughts on intimacy and that need for connection. Perhaps they're realizing that true connection isn't about finding someone who agrees with us completely, but about having a genuine exchange of perspectives, even when those perspectives are different from our own.
And maybe that's what they're doing with this audio diary, inviting us into a conversation, challenging our assumptions, and inspiring us to keep questioning, keep searching, and keep growing alongside them.
It's a beautiful invitation, one that I think we can all benefit from accepting. So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's take a moment to think about the questions that resonated most with us. What technical linguistic debt are we carrying? What frameworks are we holding on to that might be holding us back? How can we embrace that ambiguity, the mess, and the beauty of searching for meaning?
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you some new insights and inspired you to keep exploring the complexities of your own journey.